Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
As long as it's within like 10 minutes of the show starting, then
Yeah.
we just didn't like how we were doing it before, where it was like we'd send out the tweets 3 hours ahead of time and then people would forget about it, you know. They're
Yeah.
probably like you, dude. They're chasing meteors, they're going scuba diving, they're going
Yeah.
to see friends in Timbuktu, so they got too much stuff to do to remember to
Exactly.
watch a humble old live stream.
Yeah.
So I do think we are live now. So, folks, got a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. That was some pre-show banter. That's what they call it in the industry, Stephen.
Banter. Gotcha. Pre-show
Yep, the
banner.
pre-show banter. It's
Yep.
typically what happens in the green room. Now, it's not actually a green room. I know you're young, so you might not realize that, but it's a phrase that we use to describe the room you go in while you're waiting for a show to start.
Yeah, I did a AV class, so we had a green room.
Okay, okay. Was it green?
No, that was not.
Okay, okay. Just wondering. Want to make sure you kids got it right. All right, so welcome, folks, to Storm Chasing Strategy and Preparation with Junior Coach Stephen Cross. If you've been watching any of our forecast shows, you, of course, are aware of Stephen at this point. You have perceived him. And he is actually going to continue on with a series that began a few months ago with a topic that was titled Thunderstorm Formation. So basically, how do you get the thunderstorms that you need to storm chase? And then today we are going to talk about once you have those storms in place, or at least you think there are going to be storms in place on a certain day, what do you do at that point? So, Stephen, before we get into that, why don't you tell all of us a little bit about how your storm chasing season went in 2026? I know you were all over the place, and it'll give people 2 or 3 minutes to filter in here before we start the presentation.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough year. It wasn't like the last couple of years. I only saw two tornadoes. That's not really of much importance to me. I mean, I'm just kind of out there for the fun, to see storms, travel, see new places, hang out with friends. Um, but a lot of the storms, even just, the photogenicness of them, the intensity of them were pretty lackluster this year in Texas, where I mainly chase. Um, I mean, there was a lot of outflow dominance in the early part of the year, so we had a lot of low-level thermo issues. It was like we could never get any shear. It was just we just never had any good tornado setups here. They were all, of course, in the Midwest and Illinois. Everybody knows the memes at this point. And so I didn't see a tornado until June, and it was a pretty meager one at that. It was in Illinois. Who would have guessed? So I had to go up to Illinois to see that. But I mean, it was, I had fun this year. I mean, I really expanded my domain. I mean, I got out to, I don't know how many states this year, over 10 to 15 states. Chased Colorado, South Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska, Kansas, and then, of course, Oklahoma, Texas. Um, I don't think I went to New Mexico this year. I went to a lot of states. I ventured into the high plains a lot this year and into the Midwest, into Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, during my chasecation. So that was a lot of fun. Got to meet up with a lot of cool people. But yeah, I saw one little meager tornado there in Illinois near Carthage. It was that Ipava Day. And then, of course, all the stuff in central Illinois that everybody missed. But yeah, just a little rope. And then just recently in July, I know August, it was August 3rd, just like 2 weeks ago, I saw a really, 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 really weak uncondensed tornado in Minnesota. Took down a couple of trees. There was just me, my friend, and I think Bryce, Shelton, and Tornado Pagey out there. It was just the four of us on that storm, and it kind of spun up right on top of them. So that was a lot of fun. It was pretty weak. It was uncondensed, but yeah, that was my second tornado this year. I've seen some good structure, nothing quite like the past 2 years though, but it's been below average for sure, especially for Texas. But I'm glad I got out there and saw a lot of new places. So it was a lot of fun.
Good to hear you have fun, right? That's the whole point of this stupid little hobby that we all have.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is stupid when you consider all the
It is
gas money,
stupid.
all the time traveling, all the petty
Yeah.
little squabbles on various social media platforms. It's about the dumbest hobby you can have, but we love it.
Yeah, love it.
Now, Stephen, I'm going to put you on the spot for just a moment here before we start this presentation because I have something that I personally actually would like to have settled. So, between last night and actually about an hour ago, we had a couple of tornado warnings here in central Ohio where I'm from. Now, could you pull up your radar real quick? Maybe set it for like the last what are we looking at now? Maybe like the last 16, 18 hours. And I would like you to take a look at these two tornado warnings, and I would like you to let me know what you think about them. So the first one was about an hour ago, if you want to look at that one first. It rolled right through the Columbus area, so just east of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, yeah, I gotta pull up the weather front here.
Yeah,
I
while you're doing
should get
that, I'm
back
going
to
to give
them.
some shout outs to people who are in our two chats. We have, of course, the dual live streaming on YouTube and Discord. So shout out on YouTube to Reed PWX. He says 2026ing 100% 2026. Womp womp womp. Just has not been like some of the other seasons recently. Jen, the Hemolizer, over here on Discord, one of our wonderful moderators. Hello to you, as well as Radar Shark, another awesome moderator. I won't ask the question that's been on everyone's mind lately, though. It's disrespectful, Radar Shark, so I'm going to leave that one alone. Nebraska Chaser, Atlas, and Central Indiana, what's up to both of you? Glad to have you here. And let's see, Coffee77. I think that's a new face. I can't remember seeing you around, at least in the chat, so welcome. Glad to see you here. Anderson Jones, what is going on?
What's up, Anderson?
Is that a friend of yours?
That is.
And I see the chat is now getting spammed with Radar Shark telling me I don't you dare. I would never, my friend, I would never. You're too valuable a part of the Storm Chaser coaching institution that we've built. The community needs you, so. All right. G55 the Gamer, what's up, man? Jenna HL, how are you doing? Lots of people here. Chaser Mag, what is going on? Cool, cool. So we've got a nice little group of folks here, Steven, ready to take
Sweet.
a look at this presentation that you're about to give. So I'll throw it back over to you. Looks like you've got the radar up on screen now. This will be a nice little real in-the-moment breakdown.
Yeah. So you were what were you asking? Like, was the tornado warning valid?
So if you actually look, see, I don't know if the warnings are going to pop up. I don't think radar or Weatherfront has that capability yet to like backfill the warnings. But the warning was actually just to the east of Pataskala. So if you scroll over to the east a little bit further, that's the west. There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Pataskala right there. So yeah, go ahead and watch that area right there. That county, which is Licking County, that got warned.
All right. I want to turn on Storm Relative here to see if it's a little easier to see. It's going to take a little while to load in, but
yeah.
There we are. Yeah, I mean, there's weak rotation near Pataskala there.
Okay.
I mean, just weak rotation, weak mesocyclonic rotation. I mean, I could see why they warned it. It's nothing significant, but I mean, just out of precaution, I would understand.
Is that you trying to play it safe, or do you actually think that?
I do. I mean, there's a terminal. There's a terminal here. Maybe they had access to this terminal. It's down at the moment. Let's see what it looks like on the terminal. I don't know if. Yeah, it should have been going. Let's take a look. Terminal has a lot of data. It's very high res or very high temporal resolution. So it scans like every minute. So
what are the terminals?
Those are the radars at the airports.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's the Licking County Airport. Perfectly.
Yeah. So I don't actually think, since it scans every minute, I don't think we have enough room to go back that far. I would have to do a whole other thing, pull up Radar Scope Archive, and we don't have time for that. But actually, what time did it happen? Did you say? Was it this?
It would have been about 1:00 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
we're
looking at about 17 UTC, 17Z.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it goes back that far, but there was a little bit of rotation on the weather radar over here in what is that, Wilmington? So just weak rotation.
Okay, and then the other one, this one should let you should be able to go back, because I believe Weatherfront lets you go back 24 hours. This one would have been, just let me make sure I get it right here. This one would have been about 11:00 p.m. Eastern time, so about 15 hours or so ago, and that would have been what, 3Z if you got UTC time up.
Yeah, near Columbus.
Yeah. So it was actually just to the southeast of Columbus, south and southeast of Columbus, as it moved through. Tell me what you're
Yeah, I mean,
thinking right there.
looks like there was a rotating wall cloud report. I saw this yesterday get warned, and I mean, these are just weak rotators. I mean, I can understand the warning, and also knowing the environment that they're in helps. If the environment is more conducive for tornadoes, like it could be rotating one day and rotating another day, and the environment or the day with the environment that's more conducive for tornadoes may have more weight towards the warning, more urgency, because they can, see rotation starting up, and they know, hey, the environment is capable of tornadoes, so this may strengthen, so that we're going to warn it just in case. And so I don't know what the environment exactly looked like yesterday, so I don't know what went into these warnings. But I mean, there is rotation there, and I mean, I think that deserves to be warned.
Okay, all right. My theory of the case, and this is just entirely my own opinion, does not reflect Storm Chaser Coaching's opinion at all. My theory of the case is that a few days back, I forget what day it was exactly. I think it was Monday when we had the really severe. I think it was the 11th when the derecho moved through Columbus.
Yeah,
There were a bunch of tornadoes along the leading line,
yeah,
and they were spin ups. And in particular, they went through the central Ohio area, right north, central, and southern Franklin County, which is the county that Columbus is situated in. We had like a car get flipped on the live traffic cam that was like a
I
huge
saw
buzz
that.
here. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
huge buzz here. And then our COO B, who lives actually just east of downtown Columbus, she had what I'm not sure if they've confirmed it or not, but I'm almost certain. I actually went out and did like an amateur damage survey. Um, I'm pretty sure there was a tornado, especially when given her reports of how the wind shifted right before it happened from a wind that was moving westerly to winds that were actually coming out of the south.
yeah.
And they didn't warn any of them because it was a early morning derecho that came through. It was more intense than expected. We even did a forecast show with Cameron Nixon the night before, and he the next day was like, "Man, I definitely underestimated that
Yeah, I remember
event."
that.
So, yeah, I think it caught everybody off guard. And there was a huge buzz here in Columbus. All the people were upset that no tornado sirens had went off because it was early morning, kids getting ready for school, people getting on the road to drive to work, and all that stuff. And so I'm wondering if there's not some hypersensitivity now that's occurring because of that, where the ILN office might have gotten a tongue lashing about not being on the ball, and so people are actually really worried about not warning things. And that's actually kind of the. I wasn't trying to lead you into one opinion in any direction, but I was just trying to lead into that point, which is that when people are looking at what the forecast offices are doing, remember that there is a human element. Nobody is perfect,
Yeah.
and that there are different considerations. Sometimes there's media pressure. Sometimes there's inter-office pressure. Sometimes there might even be political pressure, where
Oh,
you
exactly. Yeah.
get a call from the governor who's like, he doesn't understand that an early morning derecho that's like two or three times more powerful than expected is something that is like a 2 or 3 sigma event maybe. He just knows that there's a bunch of constituents that are angry that trees got knocked down in their yards and they were in their car driving to work when they could have been home taking shelter. And so I just wonder how much that kind of stuff comes into play in a situation like this.
Yeah, it's a lot of controversy, especially lately with what happened over there on the East Coast. I don't even want to get into that. But every single office is different. There's always controversy every year about what should be warned, what shouldn't. It's been a story for, or tale as old as time to warn or not to warn, especially with QLCS tornadoes as are a big player in this. But I mean, it really varies. We're not robots. It's not AI behind it that can calculate exactly what to warn. These are humans making decisions, usually on a pretty timely basis. They got to make them quick, and every human is different. Some offices are worse than others. There are some pretty unacceptable. It's very rare that this happens. There are some instances that are like pretty unacceptable. It's like, how did you let this happen? There's a violent tornado and you didn't warn it. But it's when you get to these really quick spin ups, it's like, do you want to warn an entire city, or do you, if most of it's wind, and like it's just a controversial topic, and
Yeah.
there's really no right answer. Everybody has a different opinion. These are people warning it, right? They have to make these decisions, and I don't know. It's more controversial than it should be.
Yep, and
So
so I'm glad you said all that, Stephen. Very very well said, by the way. And I just really wanted to hammer that point home that you're never going to have perfect. We had on the 11th storms that didn't get warned that should have got warned, but if they
yeah,
had warned it and no tornadoes happened because the environment was conducive for tornadoes, but maybe they don't happen like you were saying earlier, then people would be upset in that direction. And then the last couple of days, last night, this morning, something doesn't happen, but they warned it anyways for a broad rotation because the environment, like you said, could possibly be conducive for tornadoes. And then it goes the other direction, and people are like, "Why did you warn it?" And nothing happens. So it's a really, I don't envy the position that they're in a lot of times, especially on these
Yeah.
marginal events that are on the fringes of should we warn it or not. It's got to be a tough call to be in that seat at that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Stephen. Well, I don't think we bored anybody because we actually have quite a few people both on YouTube and Discord hanging out with us right now. So
Sweet.
I think it was really cool that you were able to do some on the fly analysis, show off some of that prowess that got you the seat there in the junior coach chair. For those of you who don't know, Stephen originally got hired on as an editor, and we saw so much potential in the young lad that we decided to thrust him into the coaching role. So, Stephen, with that as your introduction, why don't you go ahead and pop up that presentation on storm chasing strategy and preparation, and I'm going to fade into the background here for a little bit.
All right, sweet. All right, we have this going. Everybody can see this, right? Just making sure.
Yep, your screen looks beautiful.
All right. Cool beans. So today we are going to be talking about chase day strategy and preparation. So in this presentation, we're going to be covering building a chase forecast with observed data. So when you wake up, the not modeled data, observed data. So what do you see from the weather balloons? What do you see on the surface? Uh, and how do you make your decision based on what you see in the morning? So that's your upper air stuff from the weather balloons, your surface observations, boundary analysis, like I said, RIOB, weather balloon soundings, your satellite interpretation. We look at visible infrared water vapor. How do we use all those? What do we look at? And then combining all of that to select a chase target. And then we're also going to be talking about how do you prepare for a chase. So I'm going to be talking about what I bring, like my camera gear, my personal protective equipment, stuff I bring in the back of my truck, like vehicle recovery equipment, tools, temporary repairs, power and lighting, and then miscellaneous items. All right, so you've just woken up on the morning of a chase. What do you do? This is a real image of me waking up. This is actually me waking up. I just woke up. This is me. This is real, by the way. All right, so a lot of us might go straight to SIMREF, or if you're, as the kids say, Sigma, you use observed data. Also, I just posted this image on Twitter. I found this for the presentation from last year, and I posted it on Twitter as a joke, and I wrote something, and it got like over 1 million views, and I don't know why, and it's just crazy. That Storm Chaser Nick, our very own Storm Chaser Nick, made this image. I robbed it off of him, posted it, and here we are. Anyways, so how can we turn all of this observed data into this? Well, the atmosphere is a puzzle, and we need to do it one piece at a time. So the very first thing I do when I wake up is I look at what the SPC says, the Storm Prediction Center. This is their job. They tell you in bright colors where to go, where the storms are going to be, where the coverage is going to be, their intensity, what hazards to expect, and they write you a whole nice long discussion. If you don't look at this, I don't know what to say. So here's what the Storm Prediction Center had on this chase day. When I went to bed, they issued this around midnight. So this is what they had. They had a broad slight risk, 2 out of 5 across the southern plains, with a large 5% tornado risk, lower end wind risk of around 15%, and then 15% significant hail risk. When I woke up, they denoted a bimodal severe risk. So they had 2 enhanced risks, one up north towards Kansas, and that was driven mainly by a 30% wind risk. So increased wind risk up there. And then down south, there was an increasing risk they were getting more confidence in where those supercells would initiate, and they had the confidence to increase the hail risk there. No tornado risk increase just yet. So this is the outlook that I made my decision on, and we'll go over my decision making. And my decision making on this day was correct because on the way to my target, they upgraded the tornado risk to a 10% significant for several strong tornadoes with some other outlook adjustments. But that main story is that tornado risk upgrade, and we'll go over why they upgraded that to a 10% strong tornado risk. So before we analyze this day ourselves, let's make sure that we have all of our gear. So the most important thing, the very first thing you want to check that you have is your wallet with your license and your cash. If you don't have that, I mean, you're kind of screwed if you get pulled over. In my camera bag, this is what I typically carry. I might carry more, I might carry less, kind of depends. Some things aren't pictured, but usually I bring a couple of tripods, my main tripods, and I have some cheap ones from Facebook Marketplace that I'll bring just in case. I bring my water bottle. I have my main camera here, this Nikon. It's my mirrorless camera with assorted lenses, an extra SD card or two. Then I also bring a backup camera. This is my DSLR. I also have my film camera. Some days I might shoot with all of these, some days I might not. Depends on the intensity of the chase if I have time. But it's always good to have a backup camera just in case. And I'm a photographer, so you don't have to bring all of this. This is just what I bring. I take a lot of photo and video. I record a lot of media. I have my quick release plates here for my tripods, for my camera to attach to the tripods. I have a cleaning case to clean the camera sensors, any of my electronics, any screens. I have some microfiber cloths here and here. I have my GoPro here with assorted attachments. I have a phone mount here for my tripods, and I have my passport just in case I'm up there up north and want to go into Canada. Haven't yet. I was close this year, but ultimately decided I didn't need to go up this year. Hiding behind this, I should have pulled this out. This is my SD. This is my what do you call it? My mind is blank. It's the SD card. Media transfer. My mind is blanking, but just so I could put my SD card, put it in my phone, and card reader. There you go, card reader. So I could put it in my phone and pull off any photos on the fly. Then I have my Insta360, my action camera. I put this on top of my truck with a mount so I can take video, extra batteries, extra SD cards. I have a pair of headphones, and then assorted chargers. Bring whatever chargers that you need. So in the back of my truck, what do we have? So we have PPE, our personal protection. So I usually bring a small first aid kit. Sometimes I'll have a bigger one in the back. I have my life hammer. This thing is there, and I put this in the first aid kit in my center console in case I need to break the window. It also has a seatbelt cutter here in case you need to cut your seatbelt. I have a hard hat. This hard hat is from Matthew Capucci. Thank you, Matthew Capucci, for giving me this beautiful Harvard hard hat. This has endured a couple of large hailstones, so it's definitely saved my butt, but it can also be handy during search and rescue if you have to enter a sketchy building that's falling apart. You always want to wear a hard hat. We have some safety glasses, high visibility vest, work gloves, nitrile gloves. We have a waterproof rain poncho, high visibility, KN95 masks and particulate masks, and then rubber boots. Rubber boots are my favorite thing. I mean, they're very, very helpful. I hate chasing in sneakers. If I'm driving long distances, I'll wear my sneakers, but then I'll throw in my rubber boots whenever I'm actively chasing. It helps get through flooded areas. Helps you when you're, during search and rescue, having these rugged boots so you don't, if you step on any nails and whatnot, these are very helpful to have. Vehicle recovery. I have my cat jump starter with a built-in air compressor. I have a four-way lug wrench. I've got some extra gas in the back. Floor jack with jack stands in case you have to change your tire. And then I have some ratchet straps and tie-down straps. So some other tools on temporary repairs. Just have a general toolkit, always great. Adjustable tongue and groove pliers. Tape measure. This also helps a lot if you need to measure hail. Good to have. Bolt cutters, and then we got crow and pry bars, WD-40, red marking crayons. This can help during search and rescue if you have to mark a building, but you can also use spray paint and whatnot. We've got rope, chainsaw. This came in handy in Minnesota the other week. It wasn't mine, but my friend had the same one with him when we were in Minnesota. Trees covered the road, and we quickly cleared up the road with this chainsaw. So these are very helpful, especially in Dixie or in wooded areas. You might not have to use this very much in the plains, but in wooded areas, it's extremely helpful. We have a pocket knife, and then we've got cable ties. So power and lighting. I have this EcoFlow portable power station. I just got this. Haven't even used it for chasing yet, but this will be very, very helpful. Bright flashlight. I got headlamps with extra batteries, and then all sorts of different charging cables. Now, honorable mentions and things I can't categorize because I'm lazy. We got bottled drinking water. It's always good to have extra water if you're on the road and you don't want to go into a gas station, buy some, just go grab one from the back. But this is also for search and rescue in case you need to hand out water. We have a waterproof reflective tarp. We got moving blankets. I mainly have these in case I get into a hailstorm and I want to throw them over my car so I don't have to be an idiot and park under an overpass. But these can also be helpful. Like I actually used one when I was on the road and I had very limited sleep. I just threw these in the back of my truck or in the inside the truck in the back seat, and I put these down so I could sleep comfortably. So these are pretty helpful to have. Uh, Bring a towel. Towel is very important. Drying your hands off, drying your electronics off. It gets very wet while chasing. Towels like top three things I would bring on a chase. Change of clothes, extremely helpful. You may think you're going to be coming home. I'll be home by 8 p.m., but it's not always the case. I got stuck in Oklahoma one year. The Marietta EF4 went across the highway after I chased the sulfur tornado, and there I couldn't get past through the highway, and it was a high risk of flooding that day. I was just soaking wet. There was water everywhere, all in my car, and I wasn't getting home that night because I had a flat tire and I had to go 100 miles around, and it was just not happening. So I was stuck in Oklahoma that night, had to get a hotel, and yeah, I had wet clothes. I did not have a change of clothes, so that was I was very smelly when I got home the next day. So it's always good to just have a change of clothes. And then bring some Rain-X as well. It can be helpful if you want to put it on your cameras, put it on your windshield, just keep things, especially the cameras, because it sucks when you get good footage and you have water droplets on it. So this is very helpful. Midland weather radio is very helpful. I was in Mississippi one night and we were sleeping overnight in the hotel, and then the next day was supposed to be a high risk outbreak, but the night before was also a big outbreak, and there was stuff going on all up and down the United States, and that was a big day and or a big night, and we were kind of scared sleeping in our hotel in Mississippi because the environment was crazy and there were supercells around, and we needed to get rest for the next big day, but we just wanted a way to receive warnings, so we had this running just in case. So it's always good to have a Midland weather radio just in case, have an extra way to receive warnings, and then a Sharpie just because why not? I mean, you always need a Sharpie. Now, scuba gear. So, how do you 0 meter a water spout? Well, you bring scuba gear. How are you gonna get inside? How's a Dominator gonna get inside the water spout? Well, you got to bring scuba gear. I'm kidding. You don't have to bring scuba gear, but that's what I've been doing lately. It's whenever I go up, it's fun. If you have room and you're certified, it's pretty fun. If you have some down days in between chases, go dive some of the local lakes and whatnot. It's a lot of fun. All right, so that's all the equipment I usually carry. A lot of people might not have room for that. I have enough room in the back of my truck. You don't even have to bring 1% of that, but that's just a very large list of things that I have that I bring on my most adventurous chases. So back to the forecasting, we got to understand what we're looking at. So first, we're going to talk about the layers of the atmosphere. This is kind of bare bones here, very important to understand. So starting off at the jet stream aloft at the very highest level of the atmosphere here, at least in terms of severe weather forecasting, we've got the jet stream that's between 9 and 12,000 meters, or 30 to 39,000 feet. And depending on the time of year, it's 300 to 200 millibars, 250 in between the seasons, 300 in the winter, 200 in the summer, 250 in between. But they're generally interchangeable. Up here, you want to analyze your jet streaks. How fast is that flow moving in the jet stream? You want to analyze your upper level divergence. Are the winds going apart? If the winds are going apart, you get more lift because it creates a void, like a vacuum, and you get lift below that. And you can also analyze your ventilation here, like how much precipitation is being vented away. Is it being vented in front of our storm? So this could be good to discern storm modes, or your how HP or LP, high precipitation, low precipitation, your storms are going to be. Moving down to 500 millibars. This is between 5,500 meters and 18,000 feet, or 18,000 feet. This is the number one thing you want to look at in weather. I mean, you should be familiar with this. This is the very first thing that people look at when they're forecasting. This is where you analyze your weather patterns. It tells you everything you need to know. What does my trough look like? Do I have a trough? Do I have a ridge? What is the tilt of this trough that I have? How fast is the shortwave translating through it? And this can give you just a wide sense of storm mode. How much broad forcing for ascent do we have? Just how potent of a day are we going to see? So the 500 millibar, very, very helpful. Now down at 700 millibars is 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet. We can look at short waves here as well. Sometimes you look at 500, sometimes you look at 700. You could look at both for short waves. Sometimes it's more prevalent on one than the other. This is also a very important level for analyzing mid-level moisture and dry air. So like your EML, your elevated mixed layer. Do we have warm temps here? Are they cool? Are they cooling quickly with height? Are our lapse rates steep? How much dry air do we have there? Where is it being advected from? Is it coming from the southwest or the north? Where is it coming from? And this can also give you clues as to how much of a cap you have. I know everyone's familiar with a cap, that warm air above the ground. This can help you really discern how likely are storms going to be later in the day. Do we have a very strong cap early in the morning, or do we have a weak cap? How easy? And you could pair that with your forcing at 500 and 250 and see, hey, how much forcing do we have to break this cap at 700 millibars? Now, at 850 millibars, this is between 1,500 and 5,000 feet. We're now at the lower levels of the atmosphere. This is where we analyze our low-level jet and our low-level shear for tornadoes, but also, very importantly, our moisture transport in the morning. If are the winds coming from the south southeast from the Gulf? If so, that's great. How strong are they? How much moisture is it transporting? Because we need that low-level moisture to lift and become storms. And this can also give you a clue as to your capping as well. You can look and see, hey, how much warm air do we have at 850 millibars? Do we have to chew through that warm air? How much forcing are we going to get? And so it can give you a good assessment of how difficult it is going to be to lift a parcel of air past this point in the atmosphere. Now down at the surface, this is around 0 feet, or of course 0 meters or 0 feet, but all the way up to 30 feet. This is where they don't typically take the observations right at 0 feet. Generally, it's around, depending on the observations, 6 feet, 30 feet, depending on the observation. But generally, of course, we're at the surface. This is where they take the temperature, the dew point. This is where they take the wind. Is the wind uniform, all in one direction, or is it all chaotic? How chaotic is our surface pattern? How strong are these winds? This is where we analyze our pressure so we can find our low pressure systems. This is where we analyze our boundaries. This is one of the most important things for really fine tuning our area of interest. You use all that upper air stuff to find your general region and synoptic support, and then you use the surface to really fine tune where you're going to get those storms and where you want to target. So now let's look at observed soundings. So these are the soundings on the morning of the day that we're covering. Generally, you want to look at a lot of different soundings. Today, we're just going to look at one, the closest one to our area of interest. But you want to look at soundings, especially downstream soundings, to see how that, because it comes, weather systems come from the west and move to the east. So you want to look downstream and see how that how a system is affecting the environment with those observed soundings, and to see how that may translate off into your area of interest. But for time's sake, we're just going to look at one sounding today, and we'll look at that in just a little bit. Next, we want to look at satellite. There's tons of different satellite you can look at. A lot of ones that I like to use that are most important are your true color, your infrared, and your water vapor. Your true colors, one everyone is familiar with. It's basically exactly what the human eye would see. You're looking at the top of the clouds. The infrared basically tells you how cold your cloud tops are. The colder, these warmer colors, I know it's kind of inverse, but the warmer you see these warm colors up here, that means that your cloud is higher and the satellite is scanning colder temperatures, because the atmosphere is colder, the higher you go up. And so the higher your storms get, the colder they get. And so this can be a good assessment of how tall your storms are and seeing how intense they are. And your water vapor, mid and upper level, this is good for analyzing in real time how your synoptic systems are evolving, like your 500 millibar, 250 millibar your jet stream and your troughs. It's a great way because it's very hard to get that data. But if you look at water vapor, you can see how that water vapor is moving and shaping with those troughs and short waves. So looking at 500 millibar on our day of interest, this is the morning map here. And this red circle is our area of interest with that SPC outlook. So this is the 500 millibar map the morning of. So looking at this 500 millibar map, we could see we have our general troughiness over here, and this is the subtropical jet stream. So it's a rather weak, subtle trough, but you can see just this general U shape dipping in. We got about 30 knots of flow here. We have our high pressure system over here across the southeast. You can see a couple of short waves rippling through here, these little kinks here in the height contours, these little short waves here. Those are subtle areas of lift within the main trough. Now looking at 250 millibars, So this is higher up now at the jet stream. And this is a very beautiful look. I mean, if you see this going across a dry line, I mean, this is beautiful. This jet stream, this broad southwest flow. We got about 60 to 70 knots of broad southwest flow, very subtle but very consistent streamline here. Just kind of fire hosing into that region. But you can also see here this defluence. We talked about it earlier. The defluence is when those wind barbs, you could see these wind barbs are spreading apart. The air is basically going in two different directions. They're taking different roads. And in the middle, you get a vacuum because when the wind goes apart, your pressure lowers and you need to lift that air. So this defluence generates lift. And well, we have lift kind of over our area of interest here. And so that's pretty interesting. So we see with that 500 millibar shortwave we looked at earlier over our area of interest and 250 millibar defluence. This is at 7 a.m. You don't want to see those storms at 7 a.m. But some days you do. So we had these storms here. This was 7 a.m. and these moved all across the panhandle as that disturbance started to move in. It was a large disturbance, a very long disturbance. So it was kind of a long duration event. We had some severe stuff overnight. And you could see this is where it was at 7 a.m. We pretty much cleared out. But the main concerns with storms that move through in the overnight, morning, afternoon hours are your atmospheric recovery because they eat up all of the ingredients. So a lot of people would think, hey, that's a concern. But a lot of times, or some of the times, especially towards the summer, you can get that atmosphere to recover a lot quicker because you have more energy. And some of the times, you can get these morning stuff to lay boundaries. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So looking at the 700 millibar map, the morning of, you could see we had general southwest flow going into our area of interest. That's great. That's bringing this warm, dry air. You can see all these greens here, how moist that is. And just to the east of that, or excuse me, just to the west of that, towards the Baja Peninsula, we have a lot of warm, dry air here. And that's being advected or carried into our area of interest. And that warm, dry air is going to steepen our lapse rates, basically make the atmosphere cool quicker because dry air cools quicker. And that basically creates an EML, puts a little lid on the atmosphere, holds storms off for the day, and then basically explodes like a bomb later in the day. So we like to see that southwest flow with that warm, dry air, that EML advecting into the region. Now down into the lower levels at 850, we had this very soupy air mass. You can see all these greens down here, this soupy air mass here. We have 30 knots of southeast flow, just shoving all of this moisture into our area of interest. And if we look down at the surface, I'm going to play the loop of the infrared here. You could see all of these storms going through, and you could see this boundary get laid right there. You can see this boundary get laid from this morning MCS, and you can see it moves pretty far south. But this was at 7 a.m., and the boundary was located right about here. And the dry line was out here. It was pretty diffuse. It was expected to sharpen through later in the day. It was going to mix east, sharpen, merge with that convective outflow, and you get storm initiation along that convergence zone. So it was a convective outflow, basically a bunch of wind that came out of the storm complex, started moving southward, and then it stalled off a little bit. And the reason it stalled off was because of that intense southeast low level flow. It was pushing it. It was kind of like tug of war, and the southeast low level flow started to win, and it eventually started to push that outflow back north, and those dew points started to moved back north towards into the panhandle, the Texas panhandle, and it became an effective warm front or a differential heating boundary. So you had that effective warm front with those dews moving northward and differential heating on both sides of this boundary. Now, the main question was where will this boundary be later in the day? That's very, very important. That's where you're going to want to target, find where it intersects the dry line for maximum convergence. So we didn't know how north this boundary was going to get. But we'll take a look at some soundings here from 7 a.m. So this is out of Midland. This is just south of the eventual chase target, near Lubbock. And this is a very nice profile to see the morning of. We talked about that 700 millibar EML, that dry air. We could see it right here. You could see how uniform, like it's just that very uniform line here. And we have 8.6 degrees Celsius per kilometer lapse rates. That is pretty impressive. That's a great EML. And we have a cap at the base of that. So that's how we know we have an EML. We've got dry air, steep lapse rates, 8.6 degrees Celsius per kilometer, a cap at the base of that. That cap is going to hold off convection throughout the day, build that instability, and then break later in the day, and we get explosive storm development. We also have this very deep moist layer. The reds and greens are very close to each other. That means the temperature and the dew point are very close, all the way up past 850 millibars or a kilometer. And so that gives us a very deep saturated boundary layer, and that gives us 1.46 inches of PWatt. And that is the 99th percentile for June 5th. So it was pretty moist for this region. That we have a lot of dry air aloft, granted, which is great, but we have a very deep moist layer, and that is owing to a lot of, or giving us a lot of PWatt and hitting the 99th percentile for June 5th for this region. So very moist. Uh, all of this moisture, heat, steep lapse rates, that's giving us a bunch of CAPE in the morning. We have over 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE in the morning. That's very impressive. We have strong bulk shear to start, as we have that jet moving overhead already. That we have about 41 knots of effective bulk shear. That should be perfectly enough to organize supercells. We have backed low level flow, which means we're getting that southeast low level flow to transport all of that moisture from the Gulf up into our area of interest. We have a strong low level jet. You can see those veering and strengthening of the winds with height. They're changing direction and speeding up, and that is giving us a lot of storm relative inflow. Now, granted, this is the morning. The low level jet is strong overnight and into the morning. It's strongest in the early morning hours when the sounding was taken. So these were expected to weaken considerably, but we'll talk about where we actually managed to get some localized areas of enhanced wind shear along that boundary. So even though we didn't have much ambient wind shear that day, later on, we actually still had a lot of wind shear to work with along the boundaries. And these humped low-level hodographs with a deep moist layer, that's going to give you, with a lot of storm relative inflow, that's going to give you very beefy, cyclic HP high precipitation storms. You have all that storm relative inflow that makes a lot of wind and inflow going into the storms. The deep moist layer results in a lot of precipitation, a lot of PWatt, and all of that with the humped low level hodographs is going to give you very cyclic, deviant tornadoes. So if we look at our true color the day of, you can see go from morning hours into the day. You could see where that boundary gets laid. You could see it become defined. It's a little hard to see early on with that big old stratus deck, but then it clears out. You can see at 11 a.m. You can see it right here. We have this big stratus deck, but you can see our boundary right there along that stratus deck. And to the south, we're pretty clear. To the north, we're pretty cloudy. And you may think this is a pretty big concern, but it is June. It is summer. We can get atmospheric recovery pretty quickly. And the reason we weren't super concerned about this stratus deck is because, number one, it was preventing overmixing. And overmixing is when you heat the surface too much. And when you heat the surface too much, you actually bake your dew points. Your dew points dry out. You go from like a 70-degree dew point, that's a lot of moisture, to a 60 like during the course of the day. And you don't want that. You want more moisture. And so when you have clouds, that prevents those dew points from basically being baked away. And sometimes you can have too much, sometimes you can have too little. This day we had just the perfect amount of clouds, and they eroded just in time for us to get enough heating. But along with that, we had intense, like we mentioned, intense moisture advection from the southeast. So that helped fuel that moisture in and build that instability. We had the steep lapse rates advecting from the southwest, which again helped build our instability. So this cloud deck wasn't too much of a concern. It was definitely noted in the forecast process, but we expected that this cloud deck wasn't going to affect the day too much. You can see by 3 p.m. we cleared out pretty nicely. 2 to 3 p.m. I mean, we were perfect. I mean, we were rolling here. I went out with my dad this day, and we left a little bit later than we had hoped, just because he had a business call. But we were rolling up, and this was a great sign to see. We were over here targeting this boundary. You could see these storms are already starting to ignite at around 3 p.m. just along this boundary. You can see that boundary drawn there in red, the effective warm front differential heating boundary, and then we have the dry line there. And where that convergence is maximized, we're getting the storm development. And along that boundary, like I mentioned earlier, there wasn't a lot of spin that day, but along that boundary, we had enhanced wind shear. And so that's why they upgraded the tornado risk at 11 a.m. They saw this boundary setting up. They expected atmospheric recovery. They upgraded that tornado risk, and they were confident in one of these storms going along the boundary and tracking along it. So the general storm motion that day was pretty much due east, southeast. But the favorable storm motion that storms had to traverse was to the southeast along that boundary. You want to parallel that boundary because it just gobbles up all of that spin along the boundary. It's just a vorticity generator, a spin generator. And so what we needed storms to track along that boundary and ingest that vorticity. We needed them to turn right from their general easterly storm motion and turn right onto that boundary and ingest all of that spin. And that is basically exactly what happened. You can see here those storms initiated. New Mexico turned right and ingested all of that spin along the boundary. I mean, that is just about as classic as it gets. That is beautiful. It goes straight towards Lubbock and then stops producing. And we had just a plethora of strong tornadoes here that day. That was just a incredible day. And here's a couple of photos from that day. Here's our positioning, me and my dad's positioning on the Morton tornado. Pretty iconic tornado this decade. Second dusty tornado right north of Morton, which is kind of ironic. It's just crazy how these things repeat themselves. This was a tornado. This wedge tornado was near Reese Center. This was an EF2. This one was actually coming at me in the image, and you were able to kind of like I said, like I mentioned, there was very deviant tornadoes. This one just completely deviated from the normal storm motion of the tornadoes that occurred prior to that and just started going south towards us. And I didn't even know until I looked at the mesocyclone above me and saw the Bears cage move over me instead of to the side in front of me. And I realized, oh shoot, we got to go. And so this was a crazy one right here. This another dusty EF2 wedge. And then this was the first one that we saw that day. We missed the very first one in New Mexico. That was a pretty photogenic one just because we showed up a little bit late. But then we got this one. This one, I took this picture standing in Texas, but this one was on the ground in New Mexico. There's a ground circulation here, this little elephant trunk funnel. But yeah, we caught a lot that day. That was a very fun day. And so that was my forecast process using observed data. And that was all the stuff that I usually bring on a storm chase. And so that's pretty much all I have for this presentation. You guys have any questions, just feel free to let me know.
All right, Stephen. Excellent presentation, but now we have the moment of truth. Those who weren't around for the green room discussion earlier, Stephen was having some trouble stopping his screen share, so I'm actually really interested to see if he can make it happen
Oh
here.
no, we got it. There we go.
Wow, look at that, man.
I'm a
See,
magician.
that's one of the reasons why you're a junior coach. I saw it in you from the beginning. You adapt quickly, you learn on the fly. It's impressive stuff, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, figuring out how to turn off my screen share. It's a big step.
A
Big
big
step.
step.
I'm ready for college, guys. I'm putting that in my college application. I turned off screen share.
Dude, any college, Ivy League, instant
Yeah,
approval. You're getting in. So,
exactly. Yeah.
LOL, breathing is important. I don't know if that's taking a jab at me that because I breathe heavy, or if
Is that
I'm
a
not
jab at
sure.
me?
Yeah, I don't know. Of course you are, Gabe. Yeah. So, all right, folks. Well, we do have some time for questions here, and for those of you who haven't played this game before with our live streams, everything is free, of course, during the presentation, and you are welcome to hang around for the Q&A session. But in order to get your question answered on the air, you are going to have to join either on Discord or on YouTube. On YouTube, that's going to be the join button right below the video that you're watching. It's only $3 per month. Same thing over on Discord, $3 per month. One of our wonderful moderators just went ahead and dropped the link in the chat. So there's also a link to the questions channel where you can drop those in. And then over on YouTube, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for those questions. It looks like we have a few that have already rolled in. So, Stephen, I'm going to start with Atlas, who asks, I never knew you could apply Rain-X to your camera lenses. Any good tips to applying it properly and how to not ruin your camera lens in the process? That is a very good question and could potentially be a very expensive mistake.
Yeah. I the last time I did it in Minnesota, I did it on my Insta360, and I did it on the outside of the Insta360 case. Sometimes I have a case on. It's a scuba diving case. It's for going underwater, but I had that just to attach to my friend's truck, and I just put Rain-X on the outside. I actually haven't put it. It worked pretty well on that case, and I don't. I would look this up because I actually haven't sprayed it on my actual camera lens before. I've just done it on the outside of the case. So this is something I would say look up because I mean I find the Rain-X very helpful just with the water spot issues that I've had to deal with on the camera lens, and that is actually a good question because I want to look that up myself and see just to make sure that it doesn't affect the camera. Maybe they have a special Rain X for cameras so you don't mess up your camera. But yeah, that's what I would say. Haven't done it myself on actual camera lenses, just on the protective cases, the protective housings, and it's worked well.
All right, next question here, coming in from Nebraska Chaser. Do you have or slash how did you go about learning BLS slash SNR or any of those other fun things? So first of all, Stephen, if you could go ahead and tell people what BLS and SNR are for those SNR are for those people. I'm not a pirate, I promise. For those people who aren't aware of those acronyms.
I don't know. I'm not in the medical field, so I couldn't tell you the exact definitions. A I took the CPR course a couple of years ago, and that's all I've taken. I've had to do search and rescue a little bit, but I haven't. First aid is the first thing I would recommend. But I know wilderness first aid is a really good one, and I still haven't taken that. I would love to take that. I wanted to take the CERT emergency response training, but there's a lot of medical stuff that I haven't had the time to do, and I would love to do now that I have some time. Um, so there's a whole list of training online that you can find to do, but I would recommend first aid, stop the bleed, of course, wilderness first aid, using things that if you don't have proper medical equipment out there. Uh, Being able to patch someone up rather quickly. But yeah, I'm not a medical person, so I'm not good with the acronyms.
So it looks like BLS, thank you chat by the way. BLS is basic life support
Yes, okay, basic life support.
and SNR is search and rescue.
Search and
So
rescue. Okay, yeah. I've never used a search and rescue acronym. I always just say search and rescue or S. Yeah, I've never actually
that
used the acronym.
that makes
But yeah,
sense.
that would make
So
sense. Yeah.
yep. So if you are looking to become certified, by the way, I think we should say important caveat here, because I don't like to go the other direction either, where people will sometimes push or bully people into you have to be certified. If you're
Yeah.
going out just to watch storms, just watch storms.
Yeah.
Obviously there are different ways of helping people, from everything from calling in um, tragedies that you've seen, with houses blown over or
Yeah.
missing roofs or whatever, so that the proper authorities can come out, to going all the way in that direction of being certified and being able to be a first responder and hop out
Yeah.
there. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind for anybody is, if you find yourself in a situation, don't go above and beyond what you are actually comfortable with, because you're probably
Yeah.
more likely to get yourself or the people you're trying to help in a bad spot if you do something wrong. Um, if anything, ask the authorities that you're calling, the
Yes.
dispatchers, if there's anything that you can do, because they'll tell you if there's something that needs to be done immediately. They'll give you instructions on what to do in that moment. So I think it's always important to just make sure people don't feel that pressure and know that they can ask others for what to do. They don't have to know beforehand.
Yeah, and I have all of that gear, and I have hardly had to use any of it. I just have it there just in case, and I'm excited to begin, taking all of the courses that I need to take. And you don't need to, it's obviously very helpful. Like Gabe said, like you don't have to take it, especially if you're just going out to see general storms and whatnot. But I'm not even fully into this. Like I'm not a full-time chaser, and I don't know if I ever will be. But it's just that is good knowledge to have in your back pocket, and I don't have all of it just yet, and that is something that I do hope to do eventually.
Man, if you're not a full time storm chaser, I don't even know what that makes me.
I guess full time is just people who are making money like off of it, like good money, just live streaming and whatnot. And
I think that means nobody's a full time storm chaser then, if
yeah,
that's
I
the
guess okay.
criteria.
This was a debate, with my good friend Falcon, long time ago, couple of months ago. Another one of those discussions on weather Twitter that are just, you know,
By the way, a couple of months ago is a long time ago for an 18-year-old, so I'll give you a pass
yeah.
on that.
Well, a lot has happened to me since then, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
fair
I'm
enough.
saying that relative to weather Twitter because it's just been a crap hole lately. Like it feels like decades ago with the amount of
The
crap that's been happening lately.
I think the what is it, the FCC, I think they give us like two curse words per show, so you could
Okay.
have dropped that F bomb if you wanted to, man. I appreciate the self moderation, appreciate
Yeah.
that you held back. But yeah, you could have dropped that. And
I see.
I think it's important too, just to mention, remind people that revenue is different from profits. So if anybody tells you they're making good money storm chasing, that
Yeah.
probably means
So
revenue.
full time storm chasing, I would say, is when you're net positive. You're making more than you are spending on equipment and gas money, and it's still a hobby when you're still going negative on storm chasing and you're finding your income elsewhere, which I am definitely negative on storm chasing. So yeah, and so I guess full time is like chasing almost every single setup, but usually economically, it's I guess net positive, making money from your live streams and content creation to be able to keep going and hardly having any other source of revenue.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, next question up here from Radar Jesse WX. How can people tell the possible amount of severe activity months ahead? Like people saying this second season will be above average. And if you wanted to even dip into some of the El Nino stuff that's been on everyone's mind, I know that it's crossed over and broken containment from the WX world because the financial podcast, one of the financial podcasts I listened to, just did a whole hour long episode on El Nino and how it's going to potentially affect like global trade
Yeah,
and different countries farming outputs and things like that. So yeah, how do people project ahead and how accurate is that?
yeah. And so I am not a long range forecaster. I know there's a lot of people like one of the notable ones is Eric Webb over there on Twitter. He is an excellent long range forecaster. It's never been my specialty. It's something I'm hoping to get more into, but I know the basics. Um, Obviously, we are heading into the strongest El Nino that we've ever seen. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this affects our severe weather season. We know how it's going to affect our hurricane season. Our Atlantic hurricane season is going to be rather quiet because it increases the trade winds out there. It increases the wind shear. More, you don't want wind shear for hurricanes. You want wind shear for tornadoes. You don't want wind shear for hurricanes. When you have intense winds and changing of direction with winds, that tears apart your hurricanes. It's like a blender to hurricanes, and you don't want that. So you have increased trade winds there in the Atlantic. However, in the Pacific, it really increases the amount of hurricanes over there in the Pacific, hurricanes, typhoons, whatever. Um, I mean, a hurricane just hit Hawaii, or I believe it got up to hurricane status. I wasn't paying too much attention, but I mean, it's pretty active there right now. And as to how this is going to affect our severe weather season, as we know that El Nino is when those waters are in the Pacific out there in the Pacific are warmer than average. Um, as to how that's going to affect our severe weather season, that is going to amplify our subtropical jet stream. Typically, that brings it shifts the polar jet northward and amplifies that subtropical jet stream because we have those two main jet streams here in the U.S. That polar jet stream dips down from Canada every now and again and moves south in the winter, moves north in the summer. And then we have that subtropical jet stream that kind of just lingers around in the southern portion of the United States. And so when that amplifies, those warmer waters amplify it. That's going to bring increased rainfall for the southern United States. So that's going to bring a lot of rainfall for the southern United States, which is great. Could bring increased snowstorms during the winter. And as for our fall tornado season, because that is our transition season between summer and winter, I am very curious. Um, I think some of the analogs were pretty active, and I'm very curious to see how it plays out with how strong the subtropical jet gets, how that's going to merge with our polar jet stream. I think we could get some interesting amplification when we merge those two jet streams. We could get some really interesting outcomes, as well as hurricanes out there in the Pacific. I think sometimes if those can get sucked into the subtropical jet stream, we'll see how that works out. Because sometimes you can get those hurricanes and they can actually amplify the subtropical jet stream even more, and that could create some interesting scenarios. I think our severe weather season and tornado season is going to be above average in the southeast. I think just with how active that subtropical jet stream will be, but there's really no telling just because of how strong and anomalous this El Nino will be. But I think we will see slightly above average activity down there in the southeast. I think we'll see drier conditions in the north, and I mean that's just a typical El Nino pattern. But yeah, should be interesting to see what plays out.
And to what extent do you think human-driven climate change is? I'm just kidding. We're not. Nope. We're not going there. And don't shoot people. Don't you dare ask a single question about it. It's not that kind of show. Anywho, taking a look here at the questions channel, we are bone dry right now, and yeah, people, people have some opinions. If you could believe that, Stephen.
Really?
There are some opinions. We are bone dry on the questions channel, so I am actually going to call it the 2 minute warning now. If you have any questions, go ahead and get them in, and we will answer them here. But you only have 2 minutes to do so on Discord, on YouTube. And just a quick reminder, one last time, if you want to ask your question on air, you are going to have to be a member either on YouTube or Discord. So there is either a link in the chat if you're on Discord. If one of our moderators could drop the exclamation point question command. And then on YouTube, there's a join button right below the video that you're watching. And if you go ahead and click that join, you can ask your question. All right, we do have another question that just came in now, Stephen from Atlas. When going out and taking photos of these storms, should I focus on getting camera settings right, or can I just shoot using my camera landscape mode and learn touching up in GIMP or Photoshop?
If you're talking about camera, are you talking about like an actual camera, like a digital or mirrorless, or are you talking about a phone camera? If you're talking about phone camera, I mean, phone is pretty much auto. There are apps that you can do manual on. Of course, you have like automatic, and then you have manual. Manual is where you adjust all the settings yourself, your ISO, your shutter speed, your aperture, all of that to adjust how much light you're getting in, what's in focus. I think it's awesome. I think photography is awesome for everybody to learn. I think if you're getting into storm chasing, you should get even just a cheap DSLR camera, digital camera, $100, and just go shoot, learn how to shoot, and then kind of work your way up.
And I didn't specify this, so just let me clarify. If you join the channel membership on YouTube or you join our Discord membership, that gets you for $3 a month access to asking questions in all of our live streams. So it's not just this one. We do 2 live streams per week on YouTube and Discord. And also we have an awesome Q&A channel on Discord where you can ask our coaches questions anytime. So even if you subscribe or you join on YouTube, you'll still get access to that role on Discord. You can come over, you can ask the coaches your questions. And then we do put out early access to our tutorial videos on YouTube and Discord for people who join. So there's actually quite a few perks. You can check them out by clicking one of those links, and it'll give you a breakdown of everything that you get access to. And the Hemalizer says, why can't I ask questions on YouTube then? That's a good question. That's because the Discord and YouTube memberships are separate. So if you have a YouTube membership, you can ask the questions over on YouTube, and you can have access to the videos early on YouTube. If you have a Discord membership, you get to ask questions on Discord. You get the videos early access over on Discord. The only thing that's shared between the two is the Q&A channel with the coaches, because of course there's no way to run a Q&A channel on YouTube. I wish there was, but there's not. So all right. No, great question, Jen. I'm glad you brought that up. It's good to clarify. I should probably do that more often when I'm talking to people. So let me see if we have one last question here on Discord. So Jen, this will be the last question that we ask. She wants to know, is it worth getting a digital camera for storm chasing, or should I just use my phone? And rather than a yes or no answer, Stephen, maybe if you could share some of the pros and cons, and like when you would start considering making that investment into a digital camera. Like where would you have to be in your storm chasing journey? What would you be trying to accomplish?
Yeah, phones are getting a lot better. I know a lot of people don't even have a digital camera. You don't need one. Like phones will take just photos just fine. But I know our coach Aaron J. Jack, like he doesn't have a camera. He just goes out there with his cell phone and records. I think unless you're really doing like really cinematic stuff in terms of video, phone's gonna do just fine. Like you don't. I hardly ever actually take videos on my camera. I usually just use my camera for pictures, and I take a lot of camera photos. A lot of these on my are cell phone photos. A lot of these on my wall are literally from my cell phone. I know that one is, and it's like my favorite photo I've ever taken. It's literally from my cell phone. Some of these are from my camera. I can't exactly remember which, but camera just having a camera and lenses gives you more flexibility, and generally you can just tell the difference. Like iPhones, they generally just they process the photos. Like when you take a photo with your camera, it's your photo. It's raw. You can do whatever you want with it. iPhones do, I mean, you can shoot in a raw mode on your iPhone, but generally they just do some sort of post processing. They have their own look, and to the naked eye, to the average Joe, you can't really notice. They're all just photos, but to any photographer, you can just tell the difference between what's taken with a cell phone, what's taken with a camera. And I think cameras are worth it. They have their own look, especially when you have multiple subjects, foregrounds, whatnot. Like if you're taking a picture of a barn in front of a storm, you can really tell the difference, how the background storm stands out with the barn. That's just an example. Like you can just really tell the difference, and it just has this more um, distinctive, appreciable look when you take a picture on a camera. And there, you can buy a DSLR for very cheap, $100 used. Go get it on Facebook Marketplace or on MPB. I suggest the site MPB. I get a lot of used stuff there. That's fantastic. All sorts of lenses, tripods, cameras. So I would suggest if you're storm chasing, get a camera. Just try it out. It's you can get a cheap camera, take some good photos, and fool around with video editing. Make sure you're editing raw files, by the way. Shoot in RAW, even on your phone. If your phone has the option, shoot on RAW. But yeah, long story short, they're both great. I literally shoot on my phone all the time. Sometimes I just don't feel worth it to pull out my camera. If it's a crappy storm, I'll just shoot on my phone and edit them later. But they have their distinctive looks, and it just depends on what you're shooting.
All right, Stephen, and that is going to bring us to our final, very final question of the day. And this is a tradition that Phil, our other host, started with the last live stream, so I see no reason to not continue it here. We're going to take one question from YouTube from a person who is not a channel member, someone who's been hanging out with us. We appreciate you. White Wolf X9Y wants to know, what's the scariest situation you've had so far when storm chasing? And I don't think I've heard this story, so I'm actually pretty interested to hear what you have to say.
Oh, I mean, there's been a few. Um, I think scariest, it gets, for me, it gets scary when you don't know what's happening. I've been in some really sketchy situations, but I've been comfortable with my decision making. Valley View was a day that was pretty scary, but I knew I didn't know what was happening initially. We didn't even know if there was a tornado on the ground, and we were looking off in the distance, and it was scary because it was going towards a population center, and the environment was absolutely ripe for violent tornadoes. And this one was just kind of like we couldn't tell if it was coming together. It wasn't lofting debris enough, and we were looking, and it was completely rain wrapped, pitch black at night. Me and my dad were out there. It was coming towards us, and I didn't get any confirmation of it being on the ground. I'm like, all right, well, if we go south, we're going to go on the highway and hit probably potentially hit traffic because there's hail, and we don't want, people are going to be on our overpasses. We don't want to go south. And I'm like, let's just go north back into the supercell. And so this was my decision making, and I wasn't totally scared that day. But it was a scary situation because there was one of the largest tornadoes in Texas history was on the ground at that point and went through and unfortunately killed 7 people just like 2 or 3 miles to our south. And so I wasn't totally scared just because I was confident in the decision that I made, and I was comfortable and I felt safe in the location that we sheltered in. But it was that was a very, very scary situation of almost 2 mile wide tornado in the middle of the night going through a population center. That was scary. But just an additional answer, the scariest situation that I personally think I've been in, like I said, I was kind of very uncertain of what was happening and I was stuck. And so that's what made this next one scary. Is this was in Sulphur, Oklahoma. This was literally just a couple of weeks prior to the story I just told. And an EF3 had just gone through the town, and I went into the town and got a flat tire, and there was flooding everywhere, and the town was pretty much completely destroyed, or at least this portion of it. And I clearly ran over something like a nail, got a flat tire, and that was scary because I was running out of air in my tire, and there were two more tornadoes going straight towards Sulphur, two more PDS, particularly dangerous, strong tornadoes going right towards the town. And I was sitting there with a flat tire, and it was scary for me, of course, because, well, I'm stuck, but I was also scared because, well, the town just got hit. There's emergency responders there. Like, this is a disaster scenario on top, two disaster scenarios on top of one that just already happened. And I was just, I wasn't comfortable with my position. The last story, I was comfortable because I made a decision. I had my escape route, and I was comfortable, and I knew what was happening around me. I knew I was sheltered, and everything was okay. This, I was not. I literally did not know what to do. And thankfully, I had enough air in my tire to get out of the town. And those tornadoes, thankfully, they pittered out right before they hit town, the two of them. But that was that day I talked about earlier when I wished I had a change of clothes because I had the flat, and I had I put on a donut, and I couldn't get down the highway because an EF4 had just gone across the highway, put debris all over the highway. And I mean, I was like multiple times I got stuck that night. And like, you never knew what was happening. And that was a very stressful night. It was a very scary night. But I would say that is probably still my scariest encounter.
Yeah, I think that definitely qualifies, man. I had never even heard that story before, so that's pretty freaking nuts.
Yeah, that was April 27th, 2024. That was a pretty unexpected night. Stuff just fired on the Confluence Band. Everybody thought it was a bust. 11 p.m., multiple violent tornadoes up and down the I-35 corridor, and I just happened to be on them because I was going home and just followed them up. And I mean, it was crazy.
Well, I think that is I think that is an excellent story to end on. A couple of comments here. Michael Cross says a monster in the dark you know is heading right towards you, and his 17th birthday. So
Yeah, that was the first story I told when my dad and I were there. It was May 25th, 2024. Yeah, that was that Valley View tornado where we were sheltering in the gas station. That was we didn't know if it was there. Like obviously I said, I knew my decision making. I knew I was safe, but I still just it was a little scary because I didn't it was scary for the people there because I didn't know if there was a tornado or not, and we didn't know until it hit that population center and you could see the debris ball on radar. Then we knew that there was indeed something there. So that was a scary day for the people because that was my community. I mean that it entered my own county. That was that was a very emotional night. It went through all these areas that I knew. So that was a scary night for sure.
and a lot of people also appreciative, it sounds like, of the advice you've been giving about photography. Great conversation happening on Discord about that. So,
Of course.
really cool stuff, folks. Really cool stuff. That is going to wrap it up, people. Steven, excellent presentation. Great
Thank you.
conversation, participation from everybody on YouTube and in the Discord chats. We appreciate all of you folks. You're all great. And make sure to check out the event calendar on Discord or just keep your eyes open in the subscription feed on YouTube to see upcoming events. We also post regularly in the community over on YouTube. You know, the like little tab you can go to that shows like memes and photos and all that jazz. We also post regularly over there to let you know when there's upcoming live streams. So that's how you can, if you don't want to go over to Discord, we think you should because Discord's awesome. Our community is great. But if you don't want to go over to Discord, that's fine. You can stick around on YouTube. Just keep your eyes peeled, turn notifications on, all that jazz. You guys know the drill. You hear everybody from PewDiePie to what's another prominent YouTuber? I only know one. What PewDiePie to what, SSS Sniper Wolf? That's another one I've heard. Is that another one? I don't know. All right, folks.
Yeah, I haven't even like thought of those people in like 7 years, eight
Yep,
years.
yep, yep. All right, folks. You guys take care. We'll see you later.